Jim the Ape Want Proof. Hello again, humans. It is I, Jim the Ape, and I wanted to get back to basics on my channel and do something that's basically my bread and butter, but I haven't done in quite some time. Yes, this is the long-awaited return of the basic one-on-one feminist response video. Also, bear in mind that I've edited the original video down quite a bit to cut out a lot of filler, redundancies, and points that I just don't feel strongly about one way or the other. But if at any point I feel it's relevant to mention anything I cut out, I'll summarize. As always, the link to the video will be in the description so you can get the full context. So, without any further ado, let's get started.
This, if you like, is an open letter to people who proclaim themselves to be anti-feminists. Now, I'm just gonna lay it out there straight away and be totally upfront about this. Feminism means equality for everybody. That is what feminism is, equality. And if anybody is in doubt about that, let me just lay it out there from the word go. If you're thinking that you're watching this video and you are anti-feminist, then you are anti-equality. And that is all there is to it.
That was a whole lot of wrong in only about 30 seconds. So let me try to summarize my rebuttals point by point. 1. The belief in equality for everyone is called egalitarianism. 2. Feminism is a dogmatic ideology / female victimhood narrative that has such tenets of faith as the wage gap, patriarchy theory, rape culture, etc. 3. I know this is anecdotal, but of the many anti-feminist YouTubers I've become acquainted with in the past year or so, most, if not all of them, are pro-equality. And last but not least, when you analyze the rhetoric and behavior of modern-day feminists, you'll find that they are extremely anti-equality, and instead want special treatment for demographics they deem marginalized. And they demonize straight white men, but that's totally not racist or sexist, because reasons.
So yesterday in America and in other parts of the world, including here in the UK, there were women's marches where we saw women and men and children, families out with signs protesting against the injustices that women have been served across the world.
Okay, I'll agree that women face injustices in other countries, particularly Muslim theocracies where the blatantly, legitimately misogynistic Sharia law rules the land. But the funny thing about the Women's March is that the protesters were largely in support of Islam, and even used an image of a woman wearing a hijab. You know, a symbol of actual oppression, since women have to cover up in Islam, lest they spark the uncontrollable sexual urges of men. But my biggest question about this is, what injustices are women currently facing here in the Western world? More specifically, what rights do women lack that they still need to fight for over here?
Now really, this is just common sense. This is just human beings asking for equality. Now, off the back of the amazing scenes that we saw yesterday, I sat down this morning and I watched a show called The Big Questions, which is a debate show about various topics. And the first topic was about feminism. And there were people in the audience speaking out on this show, women and men, who were proclaiming themselves to be anti-feminist.
Yes, it may surprise you to know that many men and women are against the regressive and harmful ideology that paints the latter as victims and the former as oppressors. And granted, many people will say they're only against modern third wave feminism. I personally am against all waves of feminism because, while I'm no historian, it seems that from what I can gather, what could most accurately be described as feminism historically has been an extremist group, at times including domestic terrorists, who were doing horrible things in the name of women's rights. Meanwhile, the people who fought for those things metaphorically, using peaceful protest and intellectual debate, could more accurately be described as the very different women's rights movement, or women's rights activists. I wonder what that sounds like.
And thank goodness there were also people in the audience who were very intelligently and eloquently counteracting the arguments that these anti-feminists were putting forward with just, you know, good old common sense.
Oh yeah, you're totally unbiased in that assessment. I mean, you describe it so objectively, I feel like I was there.
Just things that are obvious to every right-thinking person.
Hold it right there. I will not stand for this Orwellian newspeak nonsense in my house, damn it. I mean, you go on to try and clarify what you just said by saying this.
And by the way, I mean, when I say right thinking, this is my like law side coming out, but what I mean by that is people who are logical and understand the world, not right wing. This is like gonna get confusing.
You're damn right it's getting confusing, because in your attempt to elaborate, you really just spouted vague nonsense about people who are logical or who understand the world. But it's all according to your subjective opinion. So on top of the shitty, oh, it's just obvious non-argument, you may as well just be saying that anti-feminists are guilty of wrongthink and should be deplatformed by the Ministry of Truth. And feminists are double plus good, all hail Big Brother. But it's feminism, so I guess it'd be Big Sister.
So one of the good old arguments that was trotted out there, as per usual, is the anti-feminist saying, but you're talking about equality for women, but when it comes to jobs, surely it should be the best person for the job who gets the job.
Yes, that's called meritocracy. And if you're about to argue against that, I have a quick question for you. You're about to board an airplane, and you're given the choice of one of two pilots. One is a man who studied aeronautical engineering for years and trained tirelessly to learn how to fly a plane. The other is a pink-haired millennial gender studies major with absolutely no training or experience under her belt. Who would you choose?
So let's just delve into this a little bit deeper. What makes someone qualified for a particular job? The person who would get this job would be someone who has probably had an interest in this kind of thing, like when they were younger, been encouraged to pursue a educational path which would lead them to being able to be a good candidate for this job.
Okay, the part I have a problem with there is the encouragement. Now, it's definitely good to encourage people to pursue their passions in life in the hopes of achieving their dreams, be they professional or personal. But you seem to be implying that people need to start encouraging women more so than men, and quite possibly push them into fields they may not have an interest in, just so you can advance your more vaginas in all the cushy jobs agenda. No, fuck that. It is not anyone else's job to hold your hand and mollycoddle you into any given profession. If you really want to go get a job in engineering, fucking do it! Stop standing around talking about it and go do whatever it is you have to do to get that career. Now, I know there are other factors at play. College is expensive and student loan debt is a very real thing. But my point is, you're never going to get the arbitrary and rather pointless equal representation in any given field by just sitting on your ass whinging about it. Be the change you wish to see.
Now, still in 2017, we are seeing that even as children, boys and girls are being separated out with the toys that they're given, the toys that are marketed towards them, to want to do a particular thing or follow a particular path.
I seriously don't know how you managed to get from talking about career fields to talking about children's toys. But this is a bit of a dead horse in the YouTube anti-feminist community. Basically, it's just marketing. Toys are marketed towards the demographic of children most likely to want to play with them. There is nothing preventing kids from playing with toys marketed towards the opposite sex, and the reason there's still gendered marketing is because the vast majority of the time, it's effective. So either you don't understand how marketing works, or you don't understand the basic principle of capitalism known as supply and demand.
Now, this is not necessarily true across the board, but I think we can take a general, consensus of what's happening by the fact that in jobs such as technology, the women who are in sort of the higher roles within companies, well, there aren't any, or there at least aren't many, I think it's safe to say. CEOs of the big companies are usually men, and they're usually white men.
Wow, that was some quick backpedaling. I may have used the tire screeching clip a little too early. Anyway, it's almost like you're talking out of your ass and you have no idea about who the CEOs of the big technology companies are. I generally don't either because I don't give a shit, but I can tell you that the CEO of YouTube, you know, the platform we are both currently on, is a woman named Susan Wojcicki, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But it doesn't matter anyway because the CEOs of big companies shouldn't be picked based on some arbitrary race or gender quota. It should be based on who is the most qualified to run those companies successfully and let the identity political poker chips fall where they may.
Now, we have all seen those images of the girls' magazine next to the boys' magazine, or the girls' toy next to the boys' toy. And I know that these are just examples, but when we're seeing the result of what we're seeing, I don't know how you can argue too much against this as a general thing. So we're seeing the front image of a girls' magazine with the little headings on the magazine saying how to talk to your crush, how to wake up looking super pretty. And then we see the boys' magazine, how to build a bloody rocket ship, how to achieve your goal, how to follow your dream into being what you want to be. This is what we're seeing, the contrast.
I can actually explain this using a lesson I picked up from the mostly good but occasionally quacky Dr. Randomer Cam. You see, the reason these magazines and the toys you were talking about earlier are marketed in this way is the not so shocking revelation that boys and girls are different. But the differences aren't just superficial. The sexes actually have neurological differences, which is why they tend to have different interests. Put simply, girls are more interested in faces and appearances, which is why they tend to like pretty things like cosmetics and Barbie dolls, whereas boys tend to be more interested in mechanical objects and how things work, which is why they play with trucks and race cars, and they are more likely to grow up into mechanical engineering type jobs. Of course, these are just tendencies, and there's always room for outliers, but that is the simplest explanation for the gendered marketing trends you seem to be so hung up on.
So you have these anti-feminists saying the person who should get the job is the person who's best for the job, but the person who's been conditioned for the job is the man. Hopefully we can start to see this changing more and more, but that's the only way it's going to change, if we change how we raise children to be.
Conditioned for the job? What the fuck are you talking about? You know, I think this is that whole everything I don't like is society's fault argument, where you point out something innocuous, declare it to be a problem, and then blame the effects of whatever it is, i.e. the marketing of toys and magazines, rather than the cause, i.e. sexual dimorphism and evolutionary psychology. And when it comes to raising children, the only thing you should do with regards to career choice is to tell them to pursue whatever makes them happy. I mean, maybe throw in a bit of pragmatism, but basically follow your dreams.
Another argument that came out of this discussion was, but what if a man wants to be a house husband? There's still a stigma around that. That's not equal. How do you not see that that is what feminism is about?
Okay, I'm pretty sure feminism isn't about men not having jobs and not making any money for their significant other. I mean, maybe some feminists want that if it means he does all the household chores and she gets to be the breadwinner and thus be financially independent. That's all well and good, but honestly, in this economy, I think that both parties in a marriage should probably be working if they're able, and in some cases, they have to. This ain't the 1950s, and I sure as fuck am not Beaver Cleaver. Sure, you can be a stay-at-home spouse if you want, and no matter what your gender, I won't stop you. But in my estimation, it's not very practical, and it probably won't be long before you at least have to take a part-time job.
Equality. If you're saying, well, a man should have the right to be a house husband, of course he should. Do you know how you achieve that? By empowering the women to be the ones who go out there and get the just as higher paid jobs to be able to have that family situation.
Individual. Sorry. Reflex. And again with this other people need to empower women bullshit. No! Fuck you! You want equality? Fine. I'll treat you like I would treat a man who is hypothetically demanding to be pampered into a high-paying job, and I'll say go fuck yourself. If you want that job, then get off your fucking lazy ass and work for it, you useless fucking cunt!
Feminism benefits everybody.
Because I said so! Yeah, no it doesn't. It benefits some spoiled brats in like the upper middle class. But by and large, it strips women of their agency and strips men of their humanity. So I think it would be more accurate to say that feminism hurts everyone.
You only need to look at some of the signs from the Women's March of these wonderful 80-year-old women holding up these signs saying, "My arms hurt from holding up this sign for the last 60 years.
Okay. You want to play this historical oppression Olympic sport with me? Fine. Let's see if this argument works on you. My back hurts from being the majority of slave labor since the dawn of civilization. My bullet wounds hurt from fighting and dying in every war since cavemen discovered hitting each other in the head with rocks. And I didn't even want to fight, but I had to sign up to get the right to vote. My arms hurt from building roads, railways, brick walls, and fucking skyscrapers. My legs hurt from working in the sewers, in sanitation, in coal mines, in factories. My heart hurts from not being able to see my children that I still have to pay for or else I'll be thrown in jail. And worst of all, my penis hurts because when I was born, people thought it was perfectly acceptable to hack a piece of skin off of it. Do you fucking get it yet?
And then not only are we all battling against particular leaders in the world who have just set the clock back, not only are we fighting against those people, we're just fighting against, like, the regular people on the street who still believe that feminism is an evil thing.
It is, for the reasons I've explained before. It's basically a victimhood cult where if you're a straight white man, you're the devil, and if you're a disabled transgender black woman, you're probably the fucking messiah. It's harmful to women and girls because it raises them to believe that they're victims of ongoing, immutable oppression and that nothing that they do is ever their fault, including molesting children, raping men, or even murdering their husbands. It's harmful to men and boys because it tells them that their rights are hate speech and that they'd better learn not to rape or else they'll be Ted fucking Bundy. And no matter what they do, they're always to blame for women's problems as well as their own. That, if you ask me, is a fundamentally evil thing.
And you know what, there's probably some people watching this video who are going to comment below saying, well, you're sat there with your bleached blonde hair in your pink wall painted room talking about feminism. Well, yeah, because I chose these things.
Okay, I was originally going to make a list of all the choices you've spent this entire video deriding people for, but I'm too lazy and I don't want to have to watch your video all the way through again. So instead, I'll just make the simpler point that now, all of a sudden, you're putting the emphasis on choice. But the entire fucking premise of your video is that people literally cannot choose to be anti-feminist if they believe in equality. Well, hopefully I've demonstrated, or at the very least explained why nothing could be further from the truth.
So I just had to get this off my chest, guys. I think it's the right moment to talk about it all. I want to use my platform for useful things, and here's one of them.
No, it's not. Spreading misinformation is anything but useful.
So dear anti-feminists, just have a word with yourselves.
Codswallop. I've always liked that word.
That's all I gotta say. Do you know, I'm not going to disable the comments or anything on this video.
Yeah, that didn't last long. But don't worry, I never disable comments, and the only ones I delete are the obviously spam ones. Although, lately, when a comment is held for review, it won't let me approve it for some reason. Like, no matter how many times I try to click on it, it just does nothing. It's weird.
People can really just have a chat below. Don't want any arguments. Oh, no, maybe I do want arguments. Honestly, like, I feel like I'm just so done with just sitting and, like, you know, like, let's all listen to each other, because at the end of the day, equality, let's all listen to each other. But if someone can help someone else to understand that their perception of feminism is incorrect.
That's what I'm trying to do here, because your perception of feminism is equality, whereas I know that there are bullshit ideas that come along with the ideology, as well as various subgroups in conflict with each other. For example, since you mentioned the LGBT community earlier, have you perhaps heard of TERFs? That's an acronym for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. Yeah, they're feminists, but they do not believe in equality for trans people. It sounds to me like your central premise of feminism equals equality is falling apart at the seams.
Because let me tell you now, People who believe that feminism is women thinking they're better than men are wrong.
Well, they are wrong, I'll give you that, but those people have a name, you know. They're called feminists.
I'm all for everyone having their opinion, but sometimes it's just wrong. Feminism is about equality and that is it. So, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I think I've made my case as to why that's simply not an accurate assessment of what feminism is. That's pretty much the end of the video. I cut out two major parts. One about some kind of drink program at bars where you can order in a certain way, I guess if you're afraid of getting roofied. I don't really know much about it, but it didn't seem very important to include here. The other was talking about men in the church and whether or not women should be in the clergy. Yeah, I'm an atheist, so I don't care. Also, Abrahamic faiths tend to be sexist against women and patriarchal to begin with. Don't you just hate how feminists have completely ruined those words, even when they're used properly? I feel dirty just saying them. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. I don't give a shit. If you like my content, be sure to subscribe, click the bell icon, and turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, and I've been meaning to update my Patreon perks, but my lazy ass hasn't gotten around to that yet. So in the meantime, if you were thinking about giving me money, I urge you to instead give it to my dear friend Trish and her family who are currently homeless and living out of a shitbag hotel. I will be making a follow-up video about that since I didn't have nearly as much information the last time. Her links will be in the description, so donate to her if you can. Share the info around if you can't. As always, thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Stay great, apes. Much rather wake up, play video game, watch porn, get lit. Feminism's just about equality, such a crock of shit.